Buckle up. 15 years ago I was 25 and was finishing my contract, and my then GF of 3 years, Natalie, was acting increasingly strange. I came back from a 2-month assignment and was prepared to break up with Natalie. She came by and gave me the good news she was pregnant. I asked how far along she was. She said 5 weeks, so I broke it off with her and told her she needed to do better at math. She refused the breakup and insisted the baby was mine, so I told her the following: 1. Paternity test, and 2. If the child was mine, we can talk about financial support and custody arrangements with lawyers. She refused both and told everyone we both knew that I was a deadbeat for knocking her up and leaving her. I told everyone I was on a 2-month assignment when she conceived, but a few insisted for the sake of decency I house her and give her limited support. I consulted a lawyer about this mess, and the lawyer made it very, very clear that any overt support I give could be seen as me taking responsibility. So I told these friends that, and most dropped it, except one guy, who again insisted that charity couldn't be used as a legal cudgel like that. I told him if he believes that he can house her. He agreed to drop it after that. Child was born, and not even going to do the whole she didn't look like me, because most babies are born with squished faces, and all I saw were the pics she sent me with messages like Emma wants to know where daddy is and shit. She still refused to take any paternity tests. But her constantly showing up with that baby got to the point where I filed in Roe. Fun fact, in my state, a permanent Roe is not, in fact, permanent. It is 2 fucking years long. The only way to get it longer is if there was a violent crime associated. And apparently bugging someone with a baby that's not theirs is not a violent crime. So my life for the last 14 years was me renewing the Roe every 2 years, because, once it clears, Natalie shows up again with my not child. I did eventually find a nice girl, get married, and now I have 9-year-old son, Henry. My wife Kim is well aware of Natalie and Emma. When the cycle begins again, I always say the same thing: 1. Paternity test. 2. Once paternity is proven, I will take custody and get financial support set up. Natalie always refuses and says both are insulting. Recently the cycle started again, and this time Emma showed up first. She approached my son during a school event, visit to the zoo, and said, "Hi, I'm your big sister Emma." Henry knows about stranger danger and ran away to a teacher. I had to have a very, very painful talk to the teachers and parents that were at the event about my relationship with Emma and Natalie, and how Emma was never my daughter. I even called her my daughter once or twice in the conversation. After the group disbanded, one of the mothers confronted me and said that while Natalie was in the wrong telling this poor child I was her father, calling her my daughter was mocking the situation. I kind of get where she's coming from, just I can't help this child, and the honest truth is playing light of the 2-year cycles is the closest I can get to finding peace in the situation. Edit, to answer the repeated question, in my state the mother has to start the petition for the father to be established and the test to start. There is no instance where a father can start the petition. There was a chance to do this when Emma was born, but the window was exactly 1 month, and I was much too focused on the Roe, not thinking the paternity angle would bite me in the butt. One last time, to everyone saying just ask for custody. That'll force DNA test. Literally can't be done. Been through this enough with a lawyer, and have consulted with other lawyers. There are laws protecting children, and a lot of them exist for good reason. I'll explain it the way my lawyer explained it. Imagine there's a woman that ran from an abusive ex. She finds out after she escapes she's pregnant. She gives birth, never puts the ex on the birth certificate, never tries to file for support because she wants to get as far away from him as possible. He finds out years later, and tries to rope her back in using the child as leverage. She can just say no and the state has to let it go. There is however a provision if the father was involved enough to know when the birth was, that he could submit his DNA to the state within 31 days of birth as a potential father, but that time has long passed. The law is designed this way on purpose. In the eyes of the family court, I am a random person, and I was never claimed to Emma. If you think the state wants all children to be claimed by fathers and will gladly submit any DNA test whenever any potential father shows up, find a random single mom, call the family court and say you want to claim her child. I am tired of everyone acting like all I needed to do was fill out one sheet of paper and this nightmare would end. Please, just call a lawyer for a free consultation, or post on legal advice and ask them. It doesn't work that way. Update 1. Got off the phone with my attorney. We have a preliminary hearing on the new Roe this week. We will most likely be issued a temporary Roe, and then after that another hearing for the permanent Roe. CPS is investigating Natalie and Emma's living situation. The teacher's report held a lot of weight, and my lawyer thinks that this might actually be a way to end the madness now. In family court, for minors there exists something that's like a temporary, court-appointed guardian. I think the term is guardian ad litem, who is only a guardian for legal purposes and procedures and decisions of such, including for medical. If the family court appoints such for Emma, we can ask this temporary guardian for the DNA test, get this put to GR, ound. The madness might actually have an ending in sight. Adding here, I feel like I need to explain the relationship I had with Natalie all those years ago. When I got back from my 2-month assignment I was already dead set on breaking up with her. Her "oh wait I'm pregnant" was never going to make me marry her. In fact, I doubted she was pregnant for several weeks. The last year of our relationship, several red flags appeared in her behavior, ranging from demanding I check in with her while at work, only hang out with friends with her present, extreme bouts of jealousy if I ever seemed too friendly with women, including waitresses. I was in a line of work that demanded me being away for long stints, which she hated, but also kept me out of her reach for long periods of time. I think it was halfway through that last year I realized that when I was away, I did not miss her. In fact, I was relieved to plop into a cot and fall asleep after long hours of work without thinking about her. When the pregnancy turned out to be real, I made it clear that with a paternity test, I would pay support, split custody and be a co-parent and nothing more. She wanted me to be her husband, no question asked. No test, just pure blind faith and devotion to her and the child. The test, she insisted, was insulting. There was never going to be a relationship, and there was no relationship to salvage with Natalie. On the advice of the first attorney I hired, the deal was no test, no contact. Update 2. The preliminary hearing on the new row went well. Emma and Natalie were there, and we discovered that Emma is currently living with her great-grandmother and has a guardian ad litem court-appointed guardian on legal matters. My lawyer thinks this means whatever was found in Natalie's home situation warranted removing Emma, and potentially severe enough that the great-grandmother only has physical custody and the need to appoint a guardian ad litem. During the hearing, we went thr, the whole song and dance, the past rows, the whole deal. My lawyer turned to Emma's representative and said we were willing to submit to a DNA test and put this to bed. Natalie looked like she was having a conniption at that, and her own lawyer urged her to shush. Emma's representative accepted and we were cheek swabbed in the courthouse. A temporary order is now in place while a second hearing is scheduled in the upcoming weeks for the permanent 2-year order. The order covers immediate family on both sides, and as I've detailed in the past, Natalie is actually good with following court orders, oddly. We have about 4 weeks before we have the definitive test results back, but I'm not too worried either way. P.S. There was some people who thought the court couldn't use Charity as a cudgel was the father. Well, that's Jim. Haven't talked to Jim in 10 years, but Jim is gay, and hated Natalie. He just also happened to be a give the shirt off his back kind of dude, and as long as I knew him volunteered at a food pantry. His protests came mostly from naivety, not self-interest. Update 3. We got the results in late last week, as did Emma's party. I am not the father. Natalie had a major blow-up when she heard the news from her grandmother Sylvia. Emma's currently living at Sylvia's and is out of Natalie's custody. This blow-up included a major tantrum on my front lawn, which also violated the temporary row. Natalie has been arrested and Sylvia hasn't bailed her out. Sylvia has communicated to my lawyer that she wanted to give her apologies for bankrolling Natalie's life the past 15 years. I only met Sylvia a few times when I was dating Natalie, and I know Natalie grew up with her, and Sylvia had money, but was never really told the extent of that. Sylvia has communicated, via my lawyer, which is technically allowed with the row in place, that both she and Emma want to send me an apology via a letter. I told my lawyer they were free to write whatever letters they wanted, as long as this was the last communication we had with them. The permanent row is certainly going to be granted now, with the emergency one violated. We still don't know what caused Emma to be removed from Natalie's care, or if Natalie has any underlying issues. Now second story. Husband's estranged daughter is desperate for a connection, but when my mother-in-law tries to force it, I threaten to call the police and cut off her. My husband, 42 male, and I, 36F, have a very solid relationship. We have been together for about 13 years, have no children but are very active on my nephews, 4M, Mark Life. For some background, my husband has a child, 16F, Laura, with whom only my Mill and to some degree Phil have a relationship with from his nuclear family. The reason being she was conceived when her mom poked holes to the condoms. It was a whole drama about it and my Mill begging my husband to have a relationship with Laura, but he simply couldn't. He even had to get psychiatric help in order to be able to cope with it. The mom admitted she did it so he would stay with her due to responsibility, but it did not work. He pays child support because the law mandates it but nothing more. I didn't hear about this news from my husband but from my Mill, and she emphasized that she liked me a lot and hoped I would be a good enough person and procure a relationship between my husband and Laura. I was flabbergasted and asked my now husband about it because my Mill made it seem so different than the truth. He explained he was going to tell me before we moved in together, and to be fair he kind of had already gave me little info here and there, and explained the whole situation and even told me I could go to therapy with him and see the psych info if I wanted, but things were not like my Mill said. His sister confirmed this as well, and explained this issue was the reason she was not as close to her parents anymore. Things went okay-ish for some time and even the wedding went without issues. We all have several boundaries and Mill more or less respects them, although she still have constant communication with Laura and her mom. We have several cycles of very LC with her. But things went to overdrive once my Sil got pregnant with Mark. Mill started telling everybody it was not her first grandchild and all that cryptic stuff. My husband was so uncomfortable about it. She pushed for Laura to be involved in birthday parties, christening, etc., but we all said no. She also invited both of them to her birthday party a couple times and we simply did not attend. Now the new issue is that Laura has been so sad for not having the bio dad in her life. My husband said no and left immediately. I stayed while grabbing our stuff since I had brought food and told her it was not going to happen. According to my mill, Laura just wants to know my husband since he is her real dad, and despite being okay with her stepdad, it's not the same. She said she will give her our address and contact info because she is desperate for a connection. I told her I would call the police on all of them. I said my Sil will be very upset with her when she hears of this and to not be surprised to get less access to Mark. Mill called my husband cruel and me a bad person for encouraging his cruelty towards an innocent child. I told her I understand Laura is innocent, but she most likely would not be asking the same if it was a woman who conceived in the same circumstances. Ada? Update 1. I am sorry this is long. I showed my husband the post and after spending a long time reading the comments he decided enough was enough. Yesterday morning he texted my Sil and Mill telling them he would like to meet and have this over with. Mill said we could do it in the afternoon and that Laura was coming too. We all said okay. My Sil and Bill met us at the door because they didn't want to go in before us. It was really tense since the beginning. Laura tried to hug everybody but we asked her to please not. Then she tried to hug my husband and he was slightly less polite and asked her to not touch him. My Mill was very cheerful somehow and my Phil was just offering everybody drinks and snacks. He was like living in his own reality. We sat down and after what felt like the longest 5 silent minutes of my life my husband turned to Laura and asked her if she could please leave him alone. Laura responded that he was her dad and she will need his support when she goes to uni since she was planning to move to our city and it was very expensive and hard to find a place. She said she knew he owned his own place and that he clearly has money to spare, so she was wondering if he would help her out. My husband said no, that he was already paying child support and will stop as soon as the law allows him to. She was upset but somehow kept going. She turned to me and said that at the end of the day what is my husband's will go to her since Mill explained the inheritance laws to her and she wanted to be in good terms with me for when we need to decide what to do with the house, etc. I just told her not to worry because the house is on my name only and there is already a will covering it all. Mill knew about the will but not the house situation. Laura was a bit taken aback and looked at my Mill like asking for help. She said that even if there is no future money she thought my husband was unfair to her and that she used to think he simply didn't want to be a dad, but he is amazing with Mark and we even take him on trips. My Sil asked her point blank if she knew how she was conceived and she does. Laura knows everything and says that while it was not the nicest way her mom wanted her so badly that made it happen. She said Sil should understand because she has her cousin and she would love a relationship with him. My Sil was seething and Bill told Laura he will literally call the cops if she tries to get near Mark. She started crying saying that she wanted her family to love her and be as awesome as everybody is with Mark and that it is not her fault and her mom is not a bad person, she just wanted a family and my husband denied them that. My husband said that it was the lying and the deception that costed the relationship, not him, that if there was an honest mistake things would have been different. He told her he will never be her dad and she needs therapy. He said that she could get a job instead of expecting him to pay for her life in the long term and that he is not willing to have contact after today. Mill started begging both her kids not to go and maybe do family therapy. They both said they are going NC with her and Phil is on thin ice. Mill is blocked everywhere. I guess this is it. NC with Mill from all of us. Sil and husband seem actually pretty happy with the decision. We had dinner together and the topic was dropped after a couple minutes and we focused on other stuff. I am sorry there is no Disney ending, but this is for the best and I still support my husband's mental health above all. Update 2. I want to start by saying thank you again to the encouraging messages and an F to the ones calling us all monsters. We are humans and flawed as every single one of the rest. I thought the issue was over and dropped, but it seems it is now. We had some weeks of bliss and chaos afterwards. We are all still recovering from it. Now to what happened to explode our life again, and please keep in mind it brings me no joy. My nephew Mark turned 5 weeks after my last update. After so many messages from my Mill and Phil, my Sil decided to let them attend but told Mill she was not to bother me or my husband. My Mill didn't approach us once but kept staring at us and we decided to ignore her. The issue was that I kept holding my pumped stomach and my husband kept being goofy about it. I am not pregnant. I have several intolerances to delicious yummy things that make me bloated, but I misbehave and eat sometimes. My Mill does not know about most of them, since they are age developed and we used to go yo-yo with LC with her, so I guess she assumed I was pregnant. A week after Mark's birthday party is when everything went to hell. Laura came to my husband's office and made a scene. She was screaming at him how she couldn't believe he was starting over without taking care of his first child and many other insults and stuff. She was throwing office supplies and crying and making a whole deal, so the office manager called the police and an ambulance. She also called me. By the time I arrived my husband was having a panic attack in his office and totally sure he was fired. I told him to not worry and I will sort it. I explained everything to everybody from coworkers, to police, to EMTs. Laura was taken in for evaluation and the coworkers took a long lunch so my husband could leave without having the awkward walk out. I took my husband home shaking and as he was panicking and crying he said he felt unsafe. I took him to his psychiatrist and the psychiatrist was able to calm it, and we also had a session together days later where he opened up more about what the mom did to him. This has been very expensive but worth it for sure. Laura was not really in trouble since the office manager agreed to let it go for an apology and payment. The mom, Laura's, was not having it. The moment she saw my husband at the station she went ballistic and my husband couldn't handle it and he had another panic attack. This woman is a fucking doctor but does not care for it. At the end she paid the fine and restitution to the office and took Laura home. My Sil was so done with my Mill after it, she told her dad he either divorce her or she is cutting him too. It is still a 50-50 since Sil is literally Phil's favorite person but he has been married to Mill for like 44 years. My Bill took my husband camping and they had fun and kept him distracted. He has been mainly on sick leave since the incident. He is a manager so he would come one day a week and then get the rest of the week covered so he can recover. This was suggested by his bosses. Hey, all feel like they should have protected their employees better. My Sil, husband, Bill, and I had a disagreement due to Laura's expenses. I suggested to just get her a block payment and requesting she should get therapy but all of them say she should get nothing. I said I would be willing to pay for it but after the new revelations on my husband's relationship with the mom my Sil is even more up on arms against helping them more than we should. I do feel bad for Laura, I do. And I know the rest, husband, Sil, Bill, used to a little. Now, there is no way in heaven to make them help her. The last nice thing my husband did was convincing his bosses to not charge Laura and paying for the monitor she broke. Since his leave my husband spends a lot of his afternoons with Mark, my Sil and Bill and leading the charge on getting Laura to accept a bulk payment and therapy but don't want her in their life. Mill and Phil and estranged so far and my husband goes to therapy once a week and slowly recovering. And before it starts, yes we know Laura is a victim of her mom but does it give her a right to re-traumatize my husband? I still stand with my husband and probably will be called the worst of the worst but some advice was very good the first few times so that's why I came back.